It's time for another episode of Checkmate Lincolnites. Did the Confederacy have better generals? Since it's a 49-minute video, I'm going to break it into three 18-minute videos. Yeah, I'm going to do that. And we're going to start right now.
Checkmate.
What? No. There must be somewhere old Jeff Davis can go.
Nope. Might as well change his name to Norman C. Francis because he is done.
Norman C. Francis.
What?
Never mind, just some local humor.
Gracious.
Oh.
How long that game go on for?
7 months.
Well, this is ridiculous. I never stood a chance. You were fighting with one hand tied behind your back. What with all your industry and naval power and some such.
Naval power? What board game were you playing?
But I think we both know who were the finer soldiers, the men of the South. Never before, in all the annals of military history, were there a finer collection of officers at war than those of the Confederate States Army. Lee, Jackson, Forrest,
Longstreet.
we don't talk about him. Early, Beauregard.
I believe Longstreet, after the war, became a Republican. Lincoln, Republican. That's why they don't talk about him.
Mosby, and I'm sure there were some other ones too. Oh, the names of these men ring down through the generations as men of action, great masters of the art of war.
If they were so good,
The art of war.
why didn't they win? Checkmate. Davis Sights.
Sorry, Billy, but it's...
Did you notice the... I gotta go back. I apologize. Did you notice the beer of this guy right here? After Checkmate Davisites, his beer is running off the out of the top. I just kind of caught it. I'm
down
sorry.
through the generations as men of action, great masters of the art of war.
If they were so good, why didn't they win? Checkmate. Davis Sights.
It's just dribbling down.
I'm sorry, Billy, but it simply does not have quite the same ring to it as Checkmate Lincolnites.
You gotta admit, Checkmate Lincolnites does have a better ring than Checkmate Davisites. By the way, I've just finished 2 Caesar videos, and on the last one I did 2 shots. I want to do another shot, but I don't have any more. I don't have any more chaser.
The program where we obliterate the righteous cause myth, a disgusting Yankee lie which dares to suggest that the sultry, balmy, beautiful South seceded from the Union over the issue.
The balmy, beautiful South. The balmy, beautiful South. Wasn't that a line from... Was that Gods and Generals? The balmy, beautiful South. I could be wrong on that. I have Gettysburg and Gods and Generals. I'll be honest, I kind of liked them, and I know that some people are like, it's Confederate propaganda. I enjoyed it. I didn't look at it like that. I'm sure it might be more Confederate skewed because it was Ted Turner, but I actually liked it. I enjoyed it. I apologize for that. I'm sorry.
Could you imagine such a thing? Tonight, we shall prove once and for all the uncontested martial superiority of the Confederate soldier upon the field of battle. That's right, folks. The best generals were Southern. The Yankees won for a couple of reasons.
Who is this fool? You couldn't hold Jackson's jockstrap. The best generals were Southern. The Yankees won for a couple of reasons. They had more money and manpower. Given enough time, any fool can win a war of attrition. We kind of won a war of attrition in the Revolutionary War. And I don't think that you can say just because they had more money and manpower they won. If that's the case, why pick a fight with them then?
They had more money and manpower. Given time, any fool can win a war of attrition.
That was part of it, sure, but don't you think you're overstating the case?
Nope. No, sir. No, sir. We were doomed from the start, and we only held on for as long as we did because our brave boys fought like wildcats. In battle, one of us was worth 10 of your effete urban Yankees and your immigrant hordes. Not to mention our ingenious commanders, who held on against the abolition army for longer than was thought possible, until after 4 years of arduous service, marked by unsurpassed courage and fortitude, we were compelled to yield to overwhelming numbers and resources.
Oh, I see what you're doing there. You're quoting Lee's farewell address after his surrender at Appomattox. You know, it's interesting because with the very verbiage of that address, Lee abrogates his own personal responsibility for defeat. It was all just overwhelming numbers and resources, no other reason. Certainly not Confederate mismanagement or the competency and skill of the United States Army. I mean, no, that would be crazy.
Well, now I think you've really lost it. The North's industrial capacity was massive. See this photograph? This is the shipyard of one William Webb in the East River and Manhattan. This ironclad under construction is state-of-the-art, over 300 feet long, more than a match for any Confederate warship then in use. However, this behemoth would never face the Confederate Navy, for it was commissioned by the Italian Navy and would see service in the Battle of Lissa against Austria-Hungary in 1866. See, the North's industrial capacity was so humongous that it could not only more than provide for its own military, but for the militaries of other nations as well.
But that's not the fault of the North. That's the North shouldn't be held negatively because of that. I mean, that's like saying World War II, America is to blame because we had the ability to, after Pearl Harbor, Ford and GM and all those, they just started making tanks. And that's like saying, well, World War II, America helped decide that, but, I mean, they really shouldn't be credited for it. Well, one side had the manpower and the money, but that doesn't guarantee a victory. Just because the North did have manpower and money doesn't mean that they would know how to spend that money properly and not just have people in charge that would throw people and just hope that, it would be acceptable for the South to lose 300,000 and the North to lose 5 million. That's okay. Yeah, the North won. I'm just throwing out numbers. Let's say the North won. But that's not a victory to be proud of. That's 5 million less people. You know what I'm saying? I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
It's actually a really interesting tidbit. But, God isn't always on the side of the biggest battalions.
Sure.
History is full of wars where the side with the lower population and fewer resources won. The Haitian Revolution, the Vietnam War, the Winter War, the list goes on. Hell, I think you guys had a better chance of beating us in the Civil War than we had of beating the British in the Revolutionary War.
I don't know what the Winter War is.
And once or twice, he almost did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If only Jackson had survived his grievous wound at Chancellorsville and went on to carry the day on July 1st at Culp's Hill. If only the Yankees had not found General Order 191 during the Maryland campaign, then old Moss Robert would have whooped Little Mac for sure. If only the British had joined us in the fight, and a great army of...
The British were never going to join. The French were never going to... Hey, I'm trying to do a video over here, you little bitches. The British and the French would have never joined. At most, they would have tried to stop everything by negotiating. They were never going to back the side, and once Lincoln made it about emancipation, they couldn't. But even before that, when the war was going on, citizens of the UK were opposed to the Confederacy because to them it was a war of slavery. And they were against continuing to get cotton from the South, which was defending slavery, over the North, which was trying to later on abolish it. So even the citizens at one point were against it. So they couldn't have defended it. I apologize for talking too much. It's not like I'm some master historian.
Red and gray went a marching all the way to Washington. If only Sherman would have spontaneously combusted at the Battle of Chattanooga, then Atlanta never would have fallen. If only we could have cloned Jeb Stuart so he could be in both the Western and the Eastern theaters at the same time, that would have shown the Federals a thing or two. If only Judah P. Benjamin had unleashed the power of the Ark of the Covenant, melting the faces off of all those Yankee scoundrels.
I'd like to formally apologize for what he just said about Judah P. Benjamin.
We surely would have won the war then.
Circling back, history has shown that a large industrial capacity doesn't always correlate with a nation's ability or willingness to make war. Lest we forget, there was substantial anti-war sentiment in the North throughout the Civil War, especially in the summer of '64, when the public perceived that the war was going extremely badly for the United States.
I don't think they ever thought it was going extremely badly. I think they looked at it as, we're losing, why? It doesn't make sense. But I don't think they ever viewed it as that. And I just want to also jump on something real fast. I know Lincoln had believed, sorry, my nose itch. Lincoln had believed that there was a chance that he would not be reelected. My personal opinion, I don't think the fall of it was it Atlanta? There were several victories at one time. I'll say the fall of Atlanta just to speed things up. Grant had a victory. Maybe that was Chickamauga. I don't remember now. But I don't think the people only voted Lincoln back into office because of those victories, is what I'm trying to say. I know he won an electoral college landslide, I'll say 180 for the re-election. But I would say without those two victories, it probably would have been like 160. I think that he pretty much already had it in the bag. Lincoln was just he was a worrywart. He was always worrying, about the war, about his family, everything. He had so much to focus on that he was, he lacked confidence in the fact that none of this is important. I do apologize. I've been drinking, man. I'm talking. I apologize.
Keep in mind, this was after Gettysburg and Vicksburg, when the tide supposedly turned against the rebels. Now, of course, in hindsight, it's easy to say, oh, well, the Confederacy was doomed at that point. But for people at the time, it was far from certain. During the grueling sieges of Petersburg and Atlanta, there was a tremendous amount of public pressure on President Lincoln.
Petersburg. That's what it was. No, was it Petersburg? Petersburg and Atlanta. Those happened, yeah. Because he was working
to enter into peace negotiations
I'm just gonna drink.
with the Confederacy. It was only after Sherman's capture of Atlanta and Sheridan's scourging of the Shenandoah in '64 that the public began to regain hope that the war could be won. If the presidential election of 1864 had been held in August instead of November, then Lincoln probably would have lost and George McClellan would have become president.
I don't know about that.
And if his timid conduct as commanding general of the army is any indication of how he would have conducted the war as president, I think it's pretty safe to say he would have given the rebels ample opportunity to bounce back.
McClellan would have, bless his heart, McClellan was a good general in terms of building. He was not a good... Anyone ever seen Band of Brothers? He was David Schwimmer. Great at building people up and breaking them down to get them into what they need to be. Terrible tactician out on the field. You don't want to be behind him. I don't know if it was to be held in August, Lincoln would have lost. I think he would have won. It would have probably been a little closer, as I said. That's just my opinion. I can't necessarily... It's all guesswork, man. Guesswork in a red shirt. That's all it is.
Timid,
Sorry.
yes. On that we can agree. A fine administrator.
Not such a great field commander.
Oh,
Yep.
I was half expecting you to defend McClellan and proclaim him as some sort of military mastermind. But
I do apologize for all the pauses. In my opinion, as I've already said, McClellan was that. He was also a cocky piece of shit, and I apologize. It's my opinion.
not even you would stoop so low. How's that humble pie taste, Billy?
It's a little dry.
Well, you conceded a point, so I shall graciously return the favor. Perhaps I did exaggerate the role of industry in federal victory. However, if industry didn't do it, then the Yankee tendency toward tyranny certainly did. In the 20s and 30s, historian Frank L. Owsley argued that the Confederacy had, quote, died of states' rights. Our commitment to freedom was too great, that our states could not coordinate under a strong central power, and it hamstrung our war effort.
Jefferson Davis actually used to get mad because he wanted the power Lincoln had, to have complete and total power. But he would get mad because they had so much power given to the states that he lacked support from the states. And it's funny, they separated and he wanted almost the same power Lincoln had. But that's not what the Confederacy was based off. It's an interesting little side mark.
What are your thoughts? Owsley's full of shit. First off, his entire premise is a fiction. I mean, sure, Davis clashed with governors over stuff like troop allocations for local defense, but these were outlying events, the importance of which he greatly exaggerated. But more importantly, I just don't buy that the Confederacy's internal divisions were responsible for its defeat. The North had to deal with internal division that was just as, if not more intense than anything the South had to deal with. I mean, you take the 1863 draft riots, for instance, or the intense pressure on the Lincoln administration throughout the war for swift and spectacular battlefield victories, or the political polarization that followed the emancipation.
I think the battlefield stuff was not on Lincoln. It was the pressure that Lincoln put on those generals, which was... Look, Lincoln was a bright man, but I think he put way too much pressure on people to achieve victories and to do this and to do that, instead of because he was never on the battlefield to kind of get a sense of what was going on. He was, in Washington, and he's getting things from a wire. And so he's trying to put himself in that situation, and I think that was a failure on his part. Although he tried extremely hard to read about books and about military things, it's like trying to rush something through when you don't know enough about it. That's just not who he was. And I think he put way too much pressure on people. I am so sorry for pausing, but I think I'll be pausing a lot because I've been drinking, man.
Emancipation Proclamation. Talk about hamstringing the war effort. No, any way you slice it, the Confederacy lost the Civil War on the field of battle. The Lincoln administration outmaneuvered them politically, and the boys in blue annihilated them militarily. Sometimes when you start a bar fight, you end up on the floor. It happens.
I notice a hero worship of the Northern generals and seething hatred of the Southern generals from our SJW historian. Why am I not surprised? He's looking for a narrative to sell instead of facts.
Why don't we break it down? What's so... We break it down. What's so great about all these secession generals? Go ahead, Johnny. Ball's in your court.
I'll start strong, shall I? Thomas J. Jackson. He expelled the Yankees from the Shenandoah Valley in a near-flawless campaign of maneuver and decisively flanked Hooker's 11th Corps at Chancellorsville.
He also froze during the 7 Days battles when his lack of coordination with Lee and Longstreet caused horrifying numbers of unnecessary Confederate casualties. Look, I like Jackson, but I think his death was probably the best thing that could have happened to his reputation. He would have fallen from grace eventually. It was inevitable. I mean, could you imagine him fighting in the defensive grind of the Overland Campaign or the grueling trench warfare of Petersburg?
Jackson was a very good attack, but he was not a good defender. When you put him on his heels, he wasn't good. But if he was leading from the toes, charging forward, he was good. And that is what it is. But I think man, I'm trying to say this respectfully. Terrible that he was killed, especially by his own men, on such an accident. It's a loss of life that in the end did benefit the Union, but it is a loss of life on such an accidental scale. But I think had he lived, I can't say 100% that him living would have benefited the Confederacy, because I think that we would have seen his fall in some battle. Insert a battle that the Union wins. I think that if he's there, his decline is noticed in that battle instead of... I think that he would have been seen as someone who lost the battle. Instead, I believe he's put up on a pedestal as someone who could have won the war because he died. Does that make sense? That's my opinion. And I have nothing against him.
His aggressive general was unmatched, but in many ways he was kind of a one-trick pony. And I think a compelling argument could be made that Jackson's offensive tactics ultimately did more harm than good. Take Chancellorsville, for example. Sure, he won a flashy tactical victory that fills the pants of military history nerds with buckets of jizz, but what did he actually accomplish in the grand scheme of things?
He smashed the 11th Corps of the Union Army.
Okay, and?
Yeah, nothing.
And he got a lot of his own troops killed, troops that Lee could not afford to lose. Time and again, throughout the war, rebel generals tried to one-shot Union armies with dramatic Jacksonian offensives. Sure, they might maul a corps and gain a victory, but the Yankees always came back. They never realized that gambling everything on one climactic, decisive, war-winning battle was just a plain bad bet, and it always cost the Rebs more than they gained.
Nick picks up.
That was the one thing that I would say Lincoln put pressure on the Union generals, especially in the East. We need that one decisive victory. And it just never... If we had a victory, he got mad at his own guys because they didn't chase down and try to kill more, people. So... that one decisive victory just doesn't come. You might have one decisive victory here and there, but it's never going to be as clear cut as you want it to be.
See, you're finding fault where there is none. Stonewall Jackson was a mighty war chief, whereas the Union High Command, it was a veritable menagerie of nincompoops. Burnside, Pope, Butler, Banks, Meade.
Don't you dare talk shit about George Gordon Meade.
Meade was good.
Oh, what? You'll scurry up to the top of a hill and wait for me to come charging after? Please, don't take much brains to defend high ground with superior numbers. The only reason we did not carry the field at Gettysburg was because of that scallywag Longstreet, dragging his heels instead of launching his crucial offensive.
I would say that Meade's ability to know what his opponent was trying to do next kind of played a big factor into that as well. Knowing that his opponent was going to attack here one day, attack here the next day, and then feint those attacks to come into the middle and to be able to anticipate that. Like, that's pretty impressive. Pickett's charge, complete. And it's not just Pickett. There were a couple other people, and I apologize for not knowing their names. But, yeah. Meade, you can't just say he got lucky. You know, Meade did call it.
In concert with Ewell and Hill's call. And then, once we retreated, that old snapping turtle Meade did nothing to pursue us, instead allowing us to return to Virginia unmolested. A fact that vexed Abraham Lincoln to no end.
It did.
As the tyrant himself said,
"You fought and beat the enemy at Gettysburg, and of course, to say the least, his loss was as great as yours. He retreated, and you did not, as it seemed to me, pressingly pursue him. But a flood in the river detained him, till by slow degrees you were again upon him. You had at least 20,000 veteran troops directly with you, and as many more raw ones within supporting distance, all in addition to those who fought with you at Gettysburg, while it was not possible that he had received a single recruit. And yet you stood and let the flood run down, bridges be built, and the enemy move away at his leisure without attacking him. My dear General, I do not believe you appreciate the magnitude of the misfortune involved in Lee's escape. He was within your easy grasp, and to have closed upon him would, in connection with our other late successes, have ended the war. As it is, the war will be prolonged indefinitely."
One thing that Lincoln doesn't know, that Meade kind of figured out, was that Lee anticipated an attack and had his guys entrenched in a defensive position. So it wouldn't have been so easy for Meade to have attacked. Because what if Meade attacks and he loses? Then what's Lincoln say? Because now you've won Gettysburg, but now you lost. So you have to. I mean, that's one of the things where I say Lincoln put a lot of pressure on his generals.
"If you could not safely attack Lee last Monday, how can you possibly do so south of the river, when you can take with you very few more than 2/3 of the force you then had in hand? Your golden opportunity is gone, and I am distressed immeasurably because of it."
Ah, yes, he wrote that letter to Meade, but never sent it, because he realized that no good could come from chastising him after the fact.
Yeah.
God, Lincoln was so fucking classy. But you know, I think his criticism here was actually pretty unfair. What everybody seems to forget is that right after Gettysburg, Meade was under orders to keep his army between Lee and Washington, D.C. at all times. If he had just gone charging after the retreating Confederates, he would have been acting in violation of those orders.
That's true.
Also, his army had just won the biggest battle fought on North American soil. That's definitely a consideration. They'd lost a full quarter of their combat strength, and high casualties among high-ranking officers had effectively decapitated the Army's leadership. It was also pissing rain that whole week, making all military operations more challenging. And while the Army of Northern Virginia was waiting for the swollen waters of the Potomac River to recede enough to ford, they dug entrenchments and threw up earthworks.
Yeah.
They wanted Meade to attack them there.
Yeah.
"This beer used to be called Dixie."
Meade was no Jackson, right? He never attacked without good intelligence and solid knowledge of his enemy's dispositions. Was he a military genius? No. Did he make mistakes? Yeah, of course. But as far as I'm concerned, in the Gettysburg campaign, he did pretty much everything right. Lee didn't lose that battle. George Meade won it.
Very well then.
Yeah.
I propose we shift our focus to the Western theater. Oof. You sure you want to do that, Johnny? I
don't know
do.
about that.
Prepare to quake in your boots, Billy Yank, and allow me to present the most daring cavalry commander of the war. You know him. You love him. It's Nathan Bedford Forrest. Woo! Woo!
Where in the hell is that statue? Is that in Tennessee somewhere? Bedford Forrest.
Woo! 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 Nathan Bedford Forrest, right. Slave trader, clan leader. Repentant clan leader. Oh, well, that's okay then. The South's greatest cavalry officer was indeed appointed first leader of the KKK. He tried his best to keep it an honorable organization.
What?
Robert E. Lee had been offered the job first, but feeling that it would violate his parole and feeling that a younger man was needed, suggested Forrest. The Klan was never an honorable organization. It was found...
I just want to say, anyone who thinks that the Klan was an honorable organization should probably not be watching my channel, because I disagree with you completely. Although you should continue to watch my channel, like and subscribe to videos. I'm just saying, I disagree with your stance on that one.
It explicitly to terrorize black people and deprive them of their rights as American citizens. Now, Forrest worked hard to keep his association with the Klan secret.
Yes, he did.
But it's not all that hard to piece everything together. In 1871, he was actually called to testify before Congress as part of an investigation into the Klan's terroristic activities. Here's what he had to say when Vermont Congressman Luke P. Poland asked him point blank if he was part of the Invisible Empire.
Are you a member of the Ku Klux, General? I'm not, but I am in sympathy and will cooperate with them. I know they are charged with many crimes that they are not guilty of. What do you think of Negro suffrage? I am opposed to it under any and all circumstances, and in our convention urged our party not to commit themselves at all upon the subject. If the Negroes vote to enfranchise us, I do not think I would favor their disfranchisement. We will stand by those who help us, and I want you to understand distinctly that I am not an enemy to the Negro. We want him here among us. He is the only laboring class we...
He is the only laboring class we have. I would sooner trust him than the white scallywag or carpetbagger. He is the only laboring class we have. I mean, they're not going to do the work, am I right? Wow.
Have, and more than that, I would sooner trust him than the white scallywag or carpetbagger. When I entered the army, I took 47 Negroes into the army with me, and 45 of them were surrendered with me. I said to them at the start, this fight is against slavery. If we lose it, you will be made free. If we whip the fight, you stay with me and be good boys, I will set you free. In either case, you will be free.
These are his words. I said to them at the start, this fight is against slavery. I said to them at the start, this fight is against slavery. That's Nathan Bedford Forrest saying that. That's not me. Washington Government, I'm looking down here. Washington Government Printing Office, 1872. This fight is against slavery. If we lose it, you will be made free. If we whip the fight and you stay with me and be good boys, I will set you free. In either case, you will be free. This fight is against slavery. What else do you need to hear? That's what I've always said it was. It was a fight against slavery. This is Nathan Bedford Forrest saying that. Now, the fact that he had 45 or 47 and 45 stayed with him, okay. But every single one of those people expected to be free. In the end, whether they stayed or they ran, freedom was theirs. And to be honest, if I'm a slave and I'm under him, I'm staying. I'm not going to run away. Hear me out. If I run away and the North loses and I get taken by the North and the North loses, there's a good chance I get sent back south and I'm a slave all over again, right? Maybe, possibly, because he's going to look for me. If I stay there and they win and I'm free wherever. So I would have stayed. But he says this fight is against slavery. He doesn't say this fight's against states' rights. It's against slavery. Back to the video.
These boys stayed with me, drove my teams. Better Confederates did not live.
Black Confederates! Black Confederates! They were Teamsters. Don't get excited. Come on, we've been over this.
Do you think the Ku Klux will try to intimidate the Negroes at the election? I do not think they will.
However, a black man named Andrew J. Flowers from Chattanooga also testified at the hearing, and he painted a very different picture of the Klan's activities in Tennessee.
Do you now hold some office?
Yes, sir. I am a justice of the peace.
When were you chosen Justice of the Peace?
I was elected on the 4th of late August.
Justices of the Peace in Tennessee elected by a vote of the people?
Yes, sir. I was elected by a vote of the people.
I want to inquire of you, particularly in reference to some violence, which it has been understood was committed upon you a short time ago. Tell us the story in reference to that.
On the 18th, between 11 and 12, or 10 and 11 o'clock, I cannot say exactly which, I woke up and there was a crowd of men.
This guy's sleeping in until 10 or 11 or 12 o'clock. Son of a bitch. What, did people sleep all day back then? What's happening?
Masks around me, with pistols in their hands. They waked me up. They called me by my name. They took me out near a mile from the house.
Tell all that they said.
They asked me what was my name. I told them. And some of them said, "Oh yes, you are the man we are looking for," and so forth. One of them told me they were going to kill me. He had a pistol in his hand. After they got me out of doors, the captain of the organization, they called him Captain, told me that he was going to whip me. Said he would give me 25 lashes. That I had the impudence to run against a white man for office and beat him. That they were not going to allow it. That it was an organization organized by them to stop Negroes holding office. And if they did not get out of office by being told or notified or whipped, they were going to kill them. They took me up about a mile from the house and hit me as many as 25 times.
Did they take you into a woods or a swamp?
They took me through the woods into an old field, down near a swamp. I had never been there before. They took off my coat and whipped me with hickories 7 or 8 feet long. They said they were going to give me 25 lashes, and I guess they gave it to me. They told me that if I would promise to resign my office when I went to Chattanooga next morning, they would turn me loose. And I very readily promised it.
They required you to promise to resign your office.
Yes, sir.
Flowers went on to describe.
I'm going to go ahead and pause it here. No matter what, if you side with the Confederacy, you side with the Union, I don't care. Really, I don't. I'm thinking of like Greg. Greg, you're in Alabama. You have Southern views. I get it. I understand it. I disagree. But I'm from the North. That's all I know. But, and this isn't to you, Greg. I'm not saying this part, but whether you're Confederate, whether you're Union, if you think that the Klan was good, God damn, I think that most people would disagree. And I'm not saying you, Greg. I'm just saying anyone. I gotta say that unfortunately the Klan did their job. Grant took them out. They came back. They're still around today. Anyways, I'm going to end this here because I'm going to go get some food. So, have a good day, have a good night.